What is up, YouTube? This is Dave Croft, and I've got something really interesting for you today. I'm working on a cue for the Masters tournament, and it's an orchestral cue, and I thought it would be really helpful to have you follow me along as I do a final mix and master of this cue. Everything's already EQ'd, but I need to now go through the process of mixing and putting on my mastering chain. So why don't you join me as we mix and master the Winds of Change. All right, so we've got a large orchestral cue here that we're working on. It's called the Winds of Change. It is, like I said, for the upcoming Masters tournament in just like a couple of weeks on CBS. And I've already gone through and put on my EQs. And I suppose that could be a separate video just doing the EQ process. But I'm in my final mix and master. And one of the techniques that I use when I do my mix and mastering, and this is something I talk about in my class, at Full Sail actually, is the flatten mix master technique. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the first thing is I'm going to flatten all of my faders, meaning I'm just going to bring them all the way down. Just gonna crush them, put them all the way down, and I'm going to bring in the cue, or the parts of the cue that I think are the most important. And we're going to start right here. That's kind of the loudest portion of the cue. And I think this staccato is going to be the most important aspect here. We'll bring in the piano. And what I'm doing is I'm ultimately going to be adding a mastering chain to this. So I am mixing and keeping this level in mind. And I want to keep it down, leave myself, about 4 to 6 dB of headroom. So I'm just bringing things in slowly. Bring it in. Those guys aren't in yet. There's my woodwinds. Symphony. And I'm keeping an eye here. We're already getting kind of hot. Bring in the bass here. I'm going to get to a level that I like. Let me go forward just a little bit until all the other parts are in. And I've got the long sustain notes. I've got those frozen so that so I can start kind of in the middle. A little bit more brass. Now I'm not going to be doing a lot of fader automation here. I've done a lot in terms of automation, not automation, I'm sorry, in terms of modulation builds and working with those. And so I'm not going to actually go in and do a ton of fader automation because I would much rather program the MIDI modulation to kind of float around or work around with velocities. So look at this woodwind run here. Woodwind run. All right, so we're a little hot, so let's go ahead and bring it all down. I'm going to shift select all of that. Bring it all down. Okay. It's a little on the warm side, but I think I can deal with it. All right, so let's flatten them all again. I'm just shift selecting and let's flattening them all. And I'm going to remix it again a second time, but this time I'm going to bring in something that I know isn't the most important thing in first. So let's go ahead and bring in like these pipes. Feels a little sluggish, so I'm going to put a negative delay on that. There we go. Work this little cymbal in again. I have a couple of suspended cymbals. The pipes are a little loud. All right, mix is a little hot, so let's bring everything down. Still a little hot, but let's do our third mix now. Let's bring in our strings first. Let's go and bring in the woodwinds. Let's bring in our percussion. Let's see, where does that Piatti come in? Let's back it up just a little bit more so we can sneak in that suspended cymbal. And I suppose I could. That's all right. I was gonna say I can put this suspended cymbal. These are from different libraries. This is one that I recorded, and this is from East West, one of their, I think, just their orchestral percussion. And I suppose I could put these on the same lane, but I'm going to leave it as is. I'm going to leave it as is here. So I'm bringing all the rhythmic business in first. Now we'll bring in some of our pads. Your brass pad. Again, just bringing things in, so it's pretty loud. So let's go ahead and back everything down. Again, keeping an eye on my output here, because I'm going to add my mastering chain, and my mastering chain is going to need that gain. Oh, it looped around. Let's go to the top of the tune. Just listen through as it goes. Again, I'm not doing a ton of fader automation at all. That's feeling a little loud to me here. Like I said, I've done a ton of work in the velocities of these, and so if I were to look at several of these in a row, you can see how the velocities increase over time. Okay, and they dip down right in there, and yeah, just let me kind of show you all of these. Right, so you can see it gets a lot more dense here. So I've essentially worked in a fader automation kind of through this. But instead of actually going in and automating a fader lane like the volume here, I've done it in my velocity. So it's not that I don't believe in the dynamics. It's just that I do it with velocity or modulation or the expression tool or whatever. Yeah, I think the woodwinds are just a little loud. You notice there's like no real compression or anything, a couple of reverbs. Because I can essentially get compression with my velocities. If I have some transients which are kind of poking out of the mix, then I will I'll instead of throwing a compressor on, I'll actually go in and attend to those levels. A little louder on the horns. Pipes are just a little, I want to hint at like these Julian pipes. I don't want it to sound necessarily European. But we can get away with some pipes because it's a golf cue, and so kind of hinting at Scottish flavor usually goes over well. That's why there's a lot of open fifths. All right, pretty happy with that. Yeah, pretty happy with that. So let's throw on our mastering chain here. I am a huge fanboy of Ozone, so let's bring in Ozone. And I'm not going to use a preset beyond an initialization or an initialized patch that I have just kind of flattened. We're going to start here at this same portion where everything's kind of starts cooking in. So I'm going to click learn there, click learn. Click learn. So I'm telling these components to learn the EQs here, or learn the crossovers in the range. Let's go ahead and turn that gain match on. Just sweeping through, seeing what I like. Lots of low end energy in this cue because of this this orchestral sub that's just it's essentially just a sine wave, and you can see it's really floating around way down around 60 hertz or so. It's just lighting up the bottom end. Go over to our dynamics now. And what I usually do when I do the dynamics is I throw on a limiter around 1 dB or so. And I kind of go to the top where the peaks are. This is just shaving off the top peaks. Yeah, that one's already pretty. Let's turn on the auto here. Again, just putting, and I leave it 2 to 1, really, ultimately pretty light compression here. And again, it's just trimming off those top transients just to smooth it out a little bit. Let's turn on our exciter. Don't need a lot of distortion. On my low end. All right, let's look at this. It's gonna add too much fuzz. I already got a lot of energy down there. All right, let's look at this guy. A little bit more shimmer. I like that. Bring the mix down a little bit. There we go. Bring that mix down too. Might be too much. All right, that's bypassed. Yeah, I think there's a little bit too much click. Right now we're adding our imager. What I'm watching out for here is I'm isolating the bands, and I'm keeping an eye out, and we want to stay in this range here. We don't want to really spend a lot of time. I think it's okay to kind of flick into the negative phase here, but I usually keep the bass pretty center. You can see this is a lot wider. So again, I keep bass pretty center, and then I'll spread out these high ends. All right, so I use mid to side. See, we're peaking, but that's okay because we're adding EQ and everything. I'm about to address that. I use mid to side whenever I do anything that's going up to CBS because it will take the stereo signal. Whoops. It will take the stereo signal and Pro Logic 2 will kind of parse it out into surround systems, you know, in your home stereo or whatever. And so that means that the middle is going to be where the bass is because that's where the crossover happens and into a sub if you're running with a sub. And I need to scoop out of the middle where the announcers are. And so I'm going to scoop out 2K, 500, 600 to 2K or so. This range in here, I scoop out this area out of the middles, and then I can push them to the side. And when I EQ the side, I need to pull out any low end out of the sides so that it doesn't confuse a crossover into a sub. So let me go ahead and turn all of these bands on. I don't think I need that guy. So this is my mid. So let's go ahead and scoop this guy out. Now let's go to my side. All right, let's go ahead and kill the low end out of the side. And let's compensate and throw that bit that we scooped out earlier out of our mids. Let's go ahead and compensate for that. Let's do that. Let's tighten this guy up a little bit. That loop is tripping me up. Give let's not do a shelf. Let's do one of this. It's a little boost here. Actually, you know what? Let me put it on band 2. And just for good measure, on band 1, I'm gonna do a hard trim at 30 hertz and below, just to clean it up. Let's just do that manually. Whoops. How about 30? Let's do 25. I think I have. All right, and now finally the maximizer, also called, it's a limiter, essentially. Also, I've seen it called an expander. Let's turn on true peak here. I'm going to set my ceiling to -1 dB, and I'm going to push my threshold until we're getting the desired lufts. Now, this publisher specifically likes them very hot, so this is going to be a pretty hot mix, pushing up into -9 and 8 lufts, and that's okay. That's what they want. It's much higher than what you would get for streaming on iTunes or something like that, but what the publisher wants, the publisher gets. All right. I'm just going to check through these different guys and see if there's... top. Now I'm going to listen to it at a low volume, because if you're listening to broadcast, it's going to be well below the dialogue. And so I'm listening to see if there's anything that's going to kind of stick out. All right, the mix is good. The strings are cutting through the top as they should. Might be a little bit, so let's back it down just a little bit. Yeah, that brass is kind of ebbing out of the texture. Piano might be a little loud there. I think this percussion's a little loud. It's easy when you loop and cycle the region over and over. It's easy to kind of lose perspective. That got into the red because I bypassed. Yeah. Yep, I'm definitely happy with that. So we are mixed and mastered. And before I send this off to the client, notice I am in headphones. And I am not of the belief that that is as much of a cardinal sin as people would like to have you believe, especially if you don't have a perfectly treated room like I do not. But that's not to say I'm ready to send it off to the client yet. What I'm going to be doing is I will bounce it out and I'll put it onto my phone and I'll go listen to it in different locations, either with Apple earbuds, in my car, on my home stereo. You can overcome any of your mixing room shortcomings if you just reference your cue. And so listen to it in your speaker system, in different headphones. I have in this room 3 or 4 different types of headphones that I reference on. So it's not ready for the client yet. I need to do my reference work, but I do hope you found that helpful, seeing the Mixdown and seeing just a really straightforward, very, very simple mastering chain using Ozone 8. So there's my process. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. And as always, if you like what I do, please consider subscribing and hit that bell. I do have a Patreon, so you can do all of that as well. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, peace.